What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Ira. Now let's get straight into this video. Alright guys, so in this video we're going to be talking about project failure, why projects fail, how you can identify if your project is on the downwards trajectory, and also how to avoid project failure if you're starting a new project. Now especially if you're new to project management and you get your first project, you want to make sure you start off right and you do the best you can do to make sure that that project is successful. So these are definitely things you want to pay attention to right at the beginning of your project. I'm also going to be giving a few tips of how, if your project is already failing, you could probably try to get it back on track. But I won't lie to you guys, prevention is better than cure every single time on projects. Some projects may have gone too deep into the gutter and there is no resurrection. So make sure you pay attention to these tips that I give you so you can implement them and make sure that they are really at the foundation of your project when you first start. Let's get it popping. So firstly, what is project failure? How do we kind of define this? So if it were me to define project failure, it will be simply a project that does not meet the objectives of what it was set out to do. At a very basic level, these are projects that don't meet the scope, don't meet the cost, or don't meet the time. These are the main 3 project constraints which a project manager is responsible for looking after throughout the project. Also, in your end of year review or in your project review with your boss, these are the kind of metrics that they're going to start to use to kind of determine whether you're doing a good job. You know, are you behind on your budget? Are you in front of it? Do we have visibility of this? Or did we just find out right at the end of the project? Funnily enough, what I've often seen is that some project managers don't call out that their projects are failing until right at the end. Or maybe it's that they don't know how to identify that, yo, this project is in the pits of hell. Don't be that project manager. You want to be able to identify really early on if the project needs to be reassessed, whether it's actually going to meet the objectives or actually you need to make some real quick changes to your approach in order to get it back on track. Let's talk about that right now. Reasons why projects fail, how you can avoid it, and potentially how you can also fix it if it ain't looking too good for you. Alright, so the first reason why projects fail, and quite a common reason why projects fail, is because there's unclear objectives right at the beginning of the project. The project sponsor thought you were going to get said deliverables in this time at this cost. You thought something completely different and that's what you were working to. Another stakeholder was thinking something completely different and that's what they're working to. When you get to the end of the project and everyone comes together and say, hey, what is this that we have delivered? A lot of confusion. Ultimately, the project sponsor is going to be like, this is not what I wanted. So you did a bad job, PM. What did you do? Clearly, there's no alignment of objectives at the beginning. Let's try to avoid that right from the beginning. The easiest way to avoid having unclear objectives on your project right from the start is to document exactly what you are going to deliver, at what cost and in what time in a project charter. If you don't know what a project charter is, I've done a video on project documentation, so go and check that out. But essentially, it's a document where you list out all of the things that you're going to deliver in the project at a very high level. What are the risks? What are we expecting at the end? What are the deliverables, the costs, etc. The good thing about that project charter is it needs to get signed off by your key stakeholders. Guys, don't just make something and say, this is what we're going to do. But the stakeholders, especially the project sponsor, doesn't agree with that document. Ensure that you get that document in front of your project sponsor. Make sure they're happy with exactly what we are going to do, and we baseline it. We basically say, hey, at the start of the project, this is what we're gonna do, and at the end, we're hoping to get this at the same time. Now, if you're mid-project and you feel like expectations are different people are expecting different things, it's okay. I think at this point, get that charter document together. Document, write down and say, hey guys, this is what I'm currently doing. Where does anyone disagree with this, right? And then you can start to realign and get people together. Do not wait until the end of the project until you realize, hey, you thought you were gonna get this, I thought I was gonna get this. Oh dear, there's a bit of an issue here. All right, number 2, why projects fail is because there is something called scope creep. It's not good, guys. I've spoken about scope creep before because it cripples projects. This is effectively when the deliverables on a project change throughout the life of the project without anyone agreeing to it. Let me tell you something about scope creep. It's in the word itself. It creeps up on you. Let me give an example. You say, okay, we're going to deliver a mobile phone with 10 applications on it, and then someone says, oh, okay, can you just make a little tweak extra or just add a little bolt to this extra application? It's not that much effort, maybe an extra day or so. So the engineer just says, yeah, let's do it. And then later someone else says, oh, just add on this little bit as well. Okay, it's not that big. Boom, 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 boom. Listen, there's a scripture in the Bible for my fellow Christians, maybe not even Christians, doesn't even matter. It says a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then all of a sudden, bam, poverty comes upon you. That is exactly what scope creep does to your project. You add in little bits of scope into your project, and then at the end, bam, just like that. Wow, where did all of this stuff come from? Oh my days, I've overspent. Oh my days, we're way over schedule. Well, that's because the scope changed. You need to be careful of it, and you need to ensure that you're not letting unwanted bits of scope into what you said you were going to do at the beginning, because it will affect your costs and it will affect the time in which it takes to deliver. So how to avoid this? Now, change is inevitable. People change their mind. People want extra things to be added, or we might just decide actually the approach that we thought was best at the beginning of the project isn't the best approach. Change is not a bad thing. However, you must have a process for accepting change into your project. Effectively, a change management process. So at the beginning of your project, make sure you know exactly what that is. When new requests come in, they need to be properly assessed. You need to understand what the impact on cost and time will be before you accept it. Do not just let anyone just add little bits into your project. If you hear that someone or an engineer or architect's just trying to do a little bit extra work that you didn't agree at the beginning, listen, you say, come. Excuse me, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Just relax, we ain't doing that. And make sure it goes through the correct change process. If you feel like your project has already suffered from a lot of scope creep, I would suggest that you just do a retrospective. Go back and see where the deltas are between what you agreed to in the beginning and what you're delivering now, and just bring it to light. Then also go and see how much this has impacted your cost and your timeline, and escalate it straight away. You don't want to, once again, leave it right to the end. You might be able to either reverse that extra scope that's been added in, or move around a couple things in your timeline or your budget in order to absorb some of the impact which you have already accepted. So once again, go and do a retrospective, but more importantly, have a change management process that you abide to right at the beginning of the project. Number 3 then, why projects be failing is because the expectations right at the beginning of the project were unrealistic. Now, this usually happens on a project where you have a really pushy client, for example, or maybe a client that you don't want to say no to. So you just keep saying, yes, I can do this. No way, I could do this as well. And then you put it together, you give a proposal, but you haven't fully analyzed what it takes to get that done. Clients want it all. They want everything fast, they want it cheap, and they want as much as they can get for whatever they can get, right? But the truth of the matter is, sometimes if you want it fast, it ain't gonna be cheap. Sometimes if you want it cheap, it ain't gonna be fast, and it might not even be a great quality. These are the constraints we have to deal with, and you need to make it known right at the beginning what can happen, what can't happen. Set expectations really clearly instead of just saying, I can do it all. Sometimes on your project, you won't even have the resource capacity to do it all, or maybe not even the skill set within your company to do certain things. So why even saying at the beginning, this can get done when you don't have anyone to do it? So how to avoid this? Right at the beginning, it's really important to know what you can do within your organization, what you have the capacity to do, what you don't have the capacity to do. Especially when you're working with clients, setting expectations is so key. And I would say also, no client wants to hear no. I don't think anyone likes to hear no. Even me myself, someone tells me no, I don't like that, right? I don't like that. But you as a PM, don't necessarily have to say no. You just have to lay out options. You say, okay, fine, you want this, 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 and this. That's no problem. However, this is going to suffer. We will have to take this out of the scope if you want this. Or if you want this, 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 and this, that's no problem, but it's going to cost you an extra $500,000, 200K. What would you like to do? Sometimes it's better, instead of saying no, because that's a bit negative, you want to seem like you're trying to work with your client or whoever it is, just lay out the options and say, I can do this for you, however, it's going to come at this opportunity cost. What would you like to do? Put that responsibility back on your client, back on your company, let them make the decision. Number 4 then, why projects fail is because there's poor communication on the project. I cannot stress enough, guys, as a project manager, if you cannot communicate effectively, just pack your bag. Just be packing your bag, because every one of your projects go fail and it's probably on you. You need to make sure you're having regular reviews of your project plan with all stakeholders. They should have visibility of the key risks, upcoming deadlines, dependencies, who needs to do what at what time. If you need to over communicate. It's better to say they did know and they chose not to do than actually maybe they just didn't know and that's why it didn't get done. Lack of communication or poor communication often hits your timelines because it wastes time. People are meant to do things on certain days and they just didn't know, or they didn't know the kind of importance of it or exactly what they needed to do. So they do something, it's kind of what you needed, but not the exact thing. And now we've wasted time. It's really key to make sure that you don't only let people know exactly what they need to do, but how it needs to be done. Be very clear with your communication, because if not, believe me, you're gonna waste so much time. How to avoid this then? I would say, especially with your core project team, you should have regular meetings. Now, people don't like meetings because sometimes it feels like a waste of time, but ensure that those meetings have a good objective to them. They have a meeting agenda, so we know what we're going to do when we get to this meeting, and make sure that you're getting the necessary updates you need. Risks, for example, are raised by your project team. If there's new risk, we know what it is. We've ragged them correctly so that if any of them need to be escalated, we can escalate them. If you're not in constant communication with your project team, something would have changed. You won't know about it, you can't communicate it, and all of a sudden it's a mess. Ensure that you're also communicating to the right people, like all of the people that need to be communicated to. I often, in my early days as a PM, would send out, say, minutes to some people and need them to do actions, but it actually impacted a different group and they didn't get the memo. So yeah, that wasn't really helpful. Make sure that everyone that needs or has an impact on your project or certain action is included in that distribution list. It's also helpful to know the best way to communicate to different types of people. Some people, a meeting's not going to work for them because they just ain't going to turn up. Sometimes you need to call them directly. Sometimes it's better to communicate via email. They get back to you quicker. The type of communication is also equally as important as what you are communicating, so keep that in mind. And then lastly, guys, a major reason why projects fail, you need to stay on top of this, is when you miss deadlines on your critical path. It's called critical for a reason. Why are you missing deadlines on it? If you don't know what critical path is, I'll put a little description below, but effectively it is the longest sequence of activities that you need to achieve your goal at the end. In a project, there are lots of tasks that need to get done, and sometimes if it's off a day or off 2 days, it's not that deep. But if it's on the critical path, hey, it has a direct impact to your end goal, and therefore you will be, by definition, late at the end. The way to avoid this is, first of all, identify your critical path. A lot of people don't know how to do that. Maybe I should do a video on that. If I should do a video on that, drop a comment down below, because you need to know what your critical path is. Please, guys, you need to know. Once you've identified your critical path, those are the deliverables and milestones you need to pay special attention to, and where possible, put in a bit of contingency just in case, you know, they are impacted. If they are impacted, it will affect your end date. So if you have a bit of contingency, either in the timing or your budget, whatever it may be, it might help to dampen the impact of that. If you feel like, you know, you've missed a couple deliverables on your critical path already, I won't lie to you guys. This one's a hard one to fix, and that's why it's so important that right at the beginning of your project, you identify your critical path and you pay attention to it. Guys, prevention is better than cure, so make sure you're taking on all of these points right at the beginning of your project to avoid project failure. All right, guys, so that is it that I have time for in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up and also drop a comment down below, guys. Let me know how your projects are doing. Are they looking a little bit techy? Are they looking on a good path? Have you identified some of these things already so you can avoid project failure? Let me know. Let's continue the conversation down below, and I'll see you in my next video.